To feel God is not a question. To live and die is not a news. To really still about your destination. This is makes it difficult to choose. I hear when now I see you again.
Hello, and welcome to Heaven's Metal Podcast, our brand new podcast from Heaven's Metal. I've got my co-host, Jesse Sprinkle here. Say hi, Jesse.
Hello, everybody.
How are you doing, man?
I'm out of words. I'm great.
Out of words. How have things been, man?
How much time you got? I don't have time.
Well, we've got a really exciting guest today, Allan Aguirre, and he is really, a lot of people would consider him the Godfather of Christian Punk, I would definitely say, and a lot of the alternative music in Christian music back in the 80s, early 90s were definitely touched by this man. So without any further ado, why don't we go ahead and bring him on? Allan, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. Technically, this is a vidcast, not a podcast. A podcast is an audio file, left an RSS feed. Now, how would I know that?
Well, you know, the funny thing is, I was telling you beforehand, I've started doing this because I asked you what you were using, which was a product called Ecamm, and I started using it. Which was kind of funny. Before we got on here, Allan was helping me, so he was being a little bit of tech support, trying to help me figure out a few things.
You'll get an idea.
Yeah. So
the entity known as Heaven's Metal Podcast can pay for it.
Well, you know, one thing I definitely want to start with, is you came on early on in the whole alternative punk rock scene in Christian music. Like, you were the forerunner. So how did you come into that? What brought you into first punk rock, and then what brought you into Christian music? What is the story behind that?
So I became a Bowie kid when I was 12 years old. And so that opened up that entire stream to me, the new wave, the punk rock. I remember seeing a picture of some people in England in a magazine. I think it was 77, 78. And I was like, oh, look, they're wearing the same shoes I'm wearing. They're wearing the same clothes I'm wearing. And they're called punk rockers. I must be a punk rocker. Because to that point, I was just a Bowie kid. I was the Bowie freak in school. Mm. So by the time 78 came around, I was a punk rocker. I'm listening to the music. I'm involved with the scene. I'm working. I'm a working musician in Southern California, Hollywood area, LA. Mm-hmm. And then, so in 1979, at the end of 1979, my buddy was on drums. I was on guitar. We're both 15 years old. We're jamming out a couple tunes that I had written. And so we're both 15, right? And so to get to Hollywood, you have to get from Burbank. We're Burbank kids. To get to Hollywood over the mountain, through the Cahuenga Pass, you need a car. So his sister was already, older, college age student. She had a car, and all her friends. Well, some of them worked at Licorice Pizza in 1979 in Hollywood, which was quite the hot spot. And my drummer's sister's best friend, Roxanne, beautiful redhead girl, everybody loved her. Mm-hmm. Don Bowles, drummer for the Germs, was into her. And so this particular Friday night in November of 1979, he's at my drummer's apartment. We're working in the garage. And the garage door opens, and it's Don Bowles. Now, we know who Don Bowles is because we're punk rock kids. We know who the Germs are. We know who 45 Grave is. And there's Don Bowles. And he looks around, and he goes, "You don't have a bass player?" I go, "No." And he goes, How about I show up tomorrow with a bass guitar? And we're like, okay. He goes, all right, I'll bring a case of beer. And he shuts the garage door. This is 10 o'clock at night on a Friday night. We're 15 years old. We're like, he's never going to show up. Well, guess who showed up Saturday afternoon with a bass guitar, a microphone, and a case of beer? Don Bowles. So he goes, hey, can I sing on these 2 tracks? We're like, yeah. So he sings on these 2 tracks, and we record them. And he's literally, so back then, in the late 70s of Los Angeles, all you had, if you could get your demo or your tape or whatever, right, to Rodney Bingenheimer, the DJ of KROQ, K-Rock in Los Angeles. Well, they were in Pasadena at the time. And if you liked it, he'd play it, you're off. You're off to the races. Well, but Don Bowles is already that guy, right? In about 4 months, they're going to start filming The Decline of Western Civilization, which is going to showcase his band, The Germs. Mm-hmm. So it was already a shoo-in. He was already in that stream. So all he had to do was walk in that cassette, that recording, to Rodney. Well, it's my opinion that was not only was that going to happen, but that it would be received favorably, because my family quickly set up this whole facade, this whole scam for me to be sent away to go live with a missionary uncle in Central America on a one-way ticket under false pretenses. And I found myself 2 months later in January, I found myself in Central America, not knowing the language, living with a missionary uncle.
Oh, wow.
Because this is what my parents didn't know how to manage me. I was already, quite the handful. Rebel Rebel is my theme song. Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. I'm in Hollywood at all 8 hours of the night. 15 years old, And so they sent me to go live with the missionary uncle in hopes of rehabilitating me under false pretenses, one-way ticket for 4 months. I was there for over 3 years, but I got saved. I met Jesus within a matter of days of getting there.
Wow.
And that absolutely completely changed my life. So the second part of your question, when I got back to the States in January or February of 1983, I started going to church with my brother, and one of the pastors of the church asked me, he basically approached me and said, look, we want to start a ministry for youth. What would you do to reach youth culture? I go, well, I'd go back to my own. I would start a band. And so he said, all right, what do you need? I go, well, we need a demo. We need some music. He goes, all right, I'll pay for it. And here's the crazy thing. Literally within 3 weeks, I'm in a recording studio recording 2 songs that my brother and I had just written. And yeah, it's the
Jesse doesn't know anything about that brother stuff.
Right? So we have this 2-song demo.
Going right in the studio. That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I was literally off the boat for 3 weeks. I hadn't been in the States for over 3 years. Now I'm in the studio to record 2 songs we had just written. And that's the Scattered Few demo of those 2 songs that are the first 2 tracks of Out of the Attic. And so here's something a lot of people don't know. Scattered Few started as an outreach to the disenfranchised, homeless youth of Hollywood Boulevard. The punk rock kids that were homeless, that had taken a bus from BFE, and showed up in Hollywood, and now they're homeless, living in abandoned hotels and hanging out at Crocker Bank on Hollywood Boulevard. And they're punk rockers, and they're my age, and they're homeless. And so we started a ministry to minister to those homeless youth in Hollywood. And then we did that's, and then so all of that came to a head with, if we do a band for these kids, for our peer group, it would take what we're doing to the next level, to the next step. Mind you, it's the spring summer of 1983, and there's nothing in Christian music that is capable of meeting that need.
Mhm.
Now, the inbred, polarized Orange County youth group mentality would tell you a different narrative. In fact, there's a whole documentary doing so right now.
Really?
Because there was no music in Christendom that could
Mhm.
meet that demographic.
Nothing. No.
And so we decided, let's start a band, because the only band that existed in the entire planet that had a pro-biblical lyrical content was a band from Washington, D.C. called Jesse.
From DC at that time?
1983, there was a band with a positive scriptural lyrical content.
I'm not ready for this one. What is it?
So in 1983, there existed a band in Washington, D.C. that actually had a positive scriptural lyrical content.
He's
No?
not gonna get. Yeah, we don't know that.
A little known band called Bad Brains,
Oh,
but they were a Rastafarian band.
Yeah, exactly.
There literally did not exist a quote Christian evangelical band that had a positive lyrical content, positive scriptural lyrical
I
content.
they always brought Bad Brains up when people mentioned you early Scattered
Right.
stuff. I just didn't know where
Right. Well, they were actually friends of ours, so we worked together. So anyway, so we decided, let's start a band that has a positive scriptural lyrical content that's punk rock,
Mhm.
because that didn't exist. Orange County didn't produce any such thing.
Mhm.
So we did. And that's how Scatter Few started. It started as a homeless, an outreach to the homeless youth of Hollywood Boulevard. There was a secular band called Circle One at the time. The lead singer was named John Macias. He was actually gunned down by LAPD years later. But so he had connected with a guy named Richard. And this guy, Richard, his family owned a wig factory in Hollywood. And so we were able to use his building, his facility, through John Macias from the band Circle One because at this point we were just showing up on Hollywood Boulevard on Friday and Saturday nights and just hanging out, befriending these people, getting, earning their trust and stuff. But now, because of the wig factor, we had a place to bring food, canned goods, blankets, toiletries, socks, things that would help homeless kids our age that were punk rock kids living in abandoned hotels in Hollywood. That's how Scatter Few started.
That's dope. And
The exact opposite of everything and anything known at that time as Christian music,
right.
which was basically, again, an inbred youth group scene of Orange County, whereas we're in the streets of Hollywood. And I'm not saying that to do that. I'm just saying that's just the story.
Yeah, it was
just
different, and we did realize an interesting fact that Jesse was at a show, saw you in Tacoma, Washington. Is that what you said? So
April 1991.
Yeah, let's dig into that. Let's talk about that, because you said that
Steel trap, baby. Steel trap.
well,
incredible.
That was an important show for you as well, apparently, and had some influence in that area as well. So I'd love to talk about that, Jesse, and hear your experience and Allan's.
Well, I mean, I was 15, so I'm impressed though, Allan, that you remember the year and everything.
Isn't that weird? That's like the weirdest thing.
No, I mean that was a point in my life where truthfully, your band was pivotal in helping me kind of branch out or break free a little bit from. I was just obsessed with death metal and thrash. Like that was all I listened to, even though it doesn't show in my work now. I was the one outsider in my band that was into thrash, and they were all into indie, alternative type stuff. But one really cool thing though is that with Poor Old Lou specifically, there was only like 2 artists that we all collectively were obsessed with, because we all had kind of different. I was the outsider loving metal. They made fun of me plenty, you know, but it was Scattered Few and The Cure were the two groups that
Oh wow.
all of us in the band completely loved. So, but that show was epic, you know, and I was also smitten with Sam, like as a drummer, like I just was glued to him. Don't tell him that because he's like a comrade now, you know. I don't want to no, but no, that was it. Just you know that we all have those times in our life though where you know that something's kind of changing the trajectory of where you're going artistically, and that band was, and you probably heard it 1,000 times, but maybe 2008, but very influential. And another thing I just realized is we both of our first major albums or label releases were produced by the same person.
Yeah,
Terry Taylor.
I don't think so. People didn't realize that Terry Taylor was that guy. I don't think, in my opinion, people didn't realize he was that guy until he did produce Scattered Few, and they all went, "Oh, yeah, dude." When I heard there's songs on Shotgun Angel, like The Whistler, he's gonna do a number on you. There's stuff from Shotgun Angel where I went, there's
Wow.
these guys know something they're not letting people know about that no one else is getting. I got it. You know,
For me, it was
stuff like
Horrendous
The
Disc.
Whistler, he's gonna do a number on you, stuff like that, right? And then when Horrendous Disc came out, I was like,
That's my jam.
proof is in the pudding, right? Well, wasn't The Whistler on Horrendous Disc? Yeah. There's stuff on Shotgun Angel that was obvious. And then when Horrendous Disc sealed the deal for me, I'm like, see, I knew it. I was right. And then when Alarma came out, because Alarma and Horrendous Disc came out at the same time, that's when I went, I told you so. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I was in Central America, so I got saved, right? So I was being exposed to Christian music, Daniel Amos, Larry Norman, Keith Green, things like that, Phil Keaggy. And I remember telling my cousin, if I ever get back to the States and never do music again, I want Terry Taylor to produce. So
Nice.
in March of '83, 2 or 3 weeks later, after getting back to the States, I'm in the studio. We make a 2-song demo. And I then spent all my waking hours finding Terry Taylor. And I did. And we met in North Hollywood. I gave him the demo. And then we were in the studio with him in June of 1983 with Tom Roy down in Orange County. And we did 11-song recording where half of it is known as is on Out of the Attic.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've worked with Terry Taylor on and off ever since then.
Fantastic.
What year was Sin Disease?
1990. We went in the studio with Terry in 1989 on
Right.
Frontline Time, and that came out in the summer of 1990.
I gotta tell you, like, the timing for that coming out is kind of interesting because probably when I was about 14, 15 years old, which would have been around 90, you know, I discovered punk rock music. We were listening to everybody from the Germs to the Misfits, Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, you know, and then that whole thing started evolving with Nirvana and stuff. And so when y'all came out, it was such a shock to my system with that record, you know, because I was like, wait a minute, because I grew up in church, but I was into all this punk rock music, and now I actually have some punk rock music that's Christian, that's not, you know, saying awful things I don't agree with, you know. And it, you know, for somebody that was a punk rock kid myself for a long time, like I just really, man, that album was so monumental for so many of us, and the timing was so right. And what I love about this is when you look at your discography, you really have a lot of different types of music in there, you know, reggae with Ministries Walking, and then really more of a new wave kind of feel with Spyglass Blue, a very Bowie sounding type, you know, deal, you know? So
Yeah.
I just love the fact that you never felt like, oh, I'm caught in this one vertical and I can't go, you know, anywhere else.
On that subject though, at that point, like Sin Disease itself was almost all of those things. Like, I don't think there were any really genre bending bands, because it seemed like every band I listened to was clear cut in a certain genre, and that record didn't have any rules at all, which
Which is the most punk rock thing about it.
that's what I loved about it.
Well, I don't understand why. Well, bands put out albums where it all sounds like the same song. The whole album sounds like a variation of one song. Yeah. I've never understood that, because see, what I grew, you got to remember what I'm listening to in my real world, in my real life, leading up to that is I'm listening to that stuff that's considered eclectic. I'm listening to, Bowie. Let's just start. That's going to be the cornerstone, and then everything that derives from that.
Right.
Whether it's Eno, whether it's whatever. Then you got your Bauhaus and all that stuff. I mean, that's not like one song for 35 minutes.
Right.
Correct.
So I'm not going to be easily trapped like that. I'll use this term. I had or have a broader palette, whereas most people have maybe primary colors or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
When people are writing, they don't have the ability. Like, they almost have to. They only have so much energy to put into like one genre. I think it takes a lot to really have all those dimensions going on. But,
yeah. And not to sound arrogant, but I know I sound arrogant, but when you ask these people, when you ask them, you like, how much time did you spend on that song? 20 minutes, 30 minutes, well, why didn't you spend hours and then come back to it 2 or 3 months later and completely rework it? Maybe the bridge should be the intro. I mean, it's songwriting is a craft, and most Christians didn't know that until maybe just, a couple decades ago or a decade or two ago.
If anything, there's a whole side.
I think that was lost.
But if anything, I think
in 2000s.
in Christian music could be the only genre where people like kind of the music sometimes was secondary. It's like, hey, we want to do this thing or have this message, but we'll just kind of put it to some form of music, which is different.
But Bill King wasn't like that.
Right.
Neither was Keith Green. Neither was Daniel Williams.
Stuff.
Yeah,
those guys weren't like that.
I feel like that.
But
I feel like you were a big part of this, but the 90s, when all of the Tooth and Nail and different, types of bands started coming out, it became very valuable to us as fans to know that these are just sincere artists, and so you started hearing songs that weren't just, somebody repeating a psalm. And that were about normal life and things like that. So you didn't just have like this soulless kind of thing that sometimes I feel like CCM can have, CCM type music can be so packaged and pop. And when the people that I've met from that era and that I've known through the years, they're just some of the most sincere musicians, and even their art as they continue develops. Jesse's, for instance, not many people realize Jesse is a very proficient rapper and singer and guitar player and drummer. He does a lot, and he's an amazing producer, but he keeps creating original stuff that's sincere to his vein and his truth in that music.
Yeah. There are some.
Sure. No, but just to clarify, I was more referencing to like a lot of those ministry groups. It would be, okay, we have a message, but we're going to just cram some music. There are some really excellent bands too.
There's definitely some good ones, and there's a lot of really bad ones. Let's be honest.
More bad ones than good ones.
Exactly.
I mean, because if you think of when you bring up the 90s, I think of like Mortal Fool, Zendura, Starflyer.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those guys were, that to me, that's, and then of course, Terry Taylor's got like this huge body of work.
Catalog, yeah. And then Mike Knott, obviously, R.I.P. Mike was a big influence on us too. So.
Dude, Mike Knott. am so sad that we lost him. I will tell you, my favorite record by him was Rocket and a Bomb. And my favorite song by him was not a Christian song, it was Kitty.
That song is like kind of disturbing, but it's beautiful.
But it's hilarious. And then Bubbles the Clown, and
Especially with watching him tell
what a record.
all those people, yeah.
What an artist. Yeah.
He's a beautiful man.
Unique. Well, yeah, so with that said, we're kind of getting into the era of when you kicked off Spyglass Blue. So tell me about that, because my buddy Jason Perez got a play for you in that, and Ministries Walking too. But tell us a little bit about Spyglass Blue. What was happening with that?
Okay, so you're saying some really nice things about Sin Disease that came out in 1990. Imagine us trying to do what we were doing 7 years prior to that. They couldn't handle it in 1990, let alone 1983, right? I mean, we were literally told that X band from Orange County was the hardest Christian rock would ever get, and we're like, you guys are screwed that. But anyway, so after doing this for like 2 or 3 years, the Scatter Few thing, and being completely the Christian music industry made sure to let me know that there was no way in hell I was ever going to be allowed in to the club. And I'm like, fine, I'll go completely secular. And so I did. I had a dark wave band out of LA called Signier, and it was a dark wave band. Very difficult time to do a dark wave band because between 1986 and 89, those 4 years in LA, what was going on? Guns N' Roses, Jane's Addiction.
Mm-hmm.
There's no room in this. Yes, there was a scene here, but it's either going to be these two. It's one or the other. So we were doing this dark wave thing called Signier, this dark wave band called Signier. We got college airplay, we got K-Rock airplay. We were regulars on the KROQ local music scene showcase. We did that a lot. So I'm working, and then when I stopped doing that in '89 and pivoted to do Scattered Few again, right? Mm-hmm. So this dark wave band called Signier between 1986 and 88, 89. Jumped to 1995, which is almost 10 years later, literally almost 10 years later, when the whole we had to deal with Tooth and Nail, and a couple band members in Scattered Few basically tanked that idea. And so I went, fine. And I immediately pivoted to Spyglass Blue. The first Spyglass Blue album, it was an independent album called Shadows, which we re-released a year later on Pamplin Organic. 8 of those 12 songs were Signier songs from like almost 10 years prior, 10 to 8 years prior.
I did not know that.
Right. So what you're hearing on Shadows in 1995-96 was almost already 8 to 10 years old. I just re-recorded them. A lot of people don't know we did 2 Signier songs in Scattered Few. Later, 3. Later was a Signier song. As the Story Goes was a Signier song. Look Into My Side was a Signier song.
Play that as a story. Look Into My Side was as well.
Look Into My Side was a Signier song. And then when you go to Jawbone of an Ass, Holding Stare was a Signier song. So we did 4 Signier songs in the first 2 Scattered Few albums.
That kind of makes sense though, because those definitely kind of feel like their departure from like the heavier stuff.
Yeah.
That, right?
And so now you jump to 95 with Spyglass Blue. 8 of those 12 songs are Signier songs. And if you get the re-release, the vinyl re-release or the CD re-release that we did last year, you'll have 5 Signier tracks that as Spyglass Blue tracks. The original Signier recordings. So So when I stopped doing Scattered Few, I decided to do what the artier side of me, call it Spyglass Blue, and it's more of a, edgy new wave, post punk, vibe.
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah, that's Spyglass Blue. Yeah,
Beautiful.
I dig
Well,
Spyglass Blue.
yeah, the Spyglass Blue was a fun band. The
Yeah, it
music was so different, and you were just doing your thing. That's, honestly, the best thing about you is you're always gonna go to the beat of your own drum, man. So you're all
what am I gonna do?
Yeah,
you're
Copy
I get
Undercover or Striper? I
what
mean,
you said, Jeremy, though, is I
no,
love
you're so original though. That's
but I love
what
this
we love about
conversation.
it.
Because truthfully, like you would just, I saw it in your face. How like you have no other choice than to do what you do. But the weird thing is that isn't super common because a lot of people like to
Right.
make music.
Right.
They're thinking about what people will think about it and this and that. But with your heart, it's just like, this is what I got. This is me.
Or they'll
check
let
it out.
somebody to produce them into something that they're
Right.
not.
right. Well, 'cause even when Terry Taylor did produce me, I was in the room. But Terry already knew where I came from, so it wasn't going to be weird. But here, check this out. All right, so I'm working on a new project that's called Auditory. It's coming out as Allan Aguirre. I've never done that. I'm not using it. I'm not using the Scattered Few moniker or the Spyglass. It's just Allan Aguirre, and the album's called Auditory. Right. So I just wrote this new song. So it's like the first new song I've written in. Let me put it this way. This is the longest amount of time I've gone without doing music in my entire life. In my entire life.
What's
Yeah.
the time
Right?
frame?
Huh?
What
What's
type
the
of
time
music?
frame? Like how long has it been?
Oh. So the last time I was in the studio doing new music was 2011.
Wow.
That's incredible.
And that's the longest amount of time in my life that I've not done music. I mean, I'm still being creative. I'm writing books. I've been writing books since 2017. So anyway, all that to say, I just wrote a new song, recorded it. I'm almost done with the recording, but I'm doing like an actual, at least a minimum of an EP, right? That's what I'm working on. But I'm playing, I'm like, and my desire for this new thing that I'm calling the album is going to be called Auditory. My desire is to do stuff to keep it stripped down. I'm using the term acoustic bass, but there's electric stuff on there, but strip it down. I really want to do things I'm not known for or that I haven't really done before.
Okay.
So this new song, I know for a fact. I mean, there's a part of this new song I've never done anything like this before, ever, right? So I play it for my grandkid, my oldest grandchild. He's 13. I play it for my kids. I play it for my wife, and they're like, "Yeah, sounds like everything else you've done. Sounds like everything else you've done." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I mean,
Because it's
I've
you.
never done this right here."
Right.
They're like,
Yeah.
no. Basically, I have a sound apparently. So
Yeah.
it might be new. I might think it's new, but apparently it sounds like it sounds like you.
I would definitely
that
say
is
all
nothing
your
to be-
music has a vein of you for sure.
Yeah.
And you affect it in that way. Yeah. You know
But the fact
it's
that-
you on there.
that, you know how hard that is to have a signature sound?
Yeah.
Apparently
Like, even
I
if you try to-
figured
even
that
if you try
out
to
and I
trick
pulled it off
yourself.
without even knowing.
You can try to trick yourself and be like, this is something like in a different vein, but if
It's
you doing
freaking,
it,
it's a banjo and kazoos, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
but your finger, yeah.
Oh my god.
Out next year.
Banjo
Out.
and kazoo.
We starting a kazoo band.
No, it's a Tejano band.
Wow.
No, that would be fun. I'll tell you, the only music that I ever used to when I traveled a lot and I need to stay awake, I would turn on Tejano music. It's the one, it is my kryptonite. It will irritate me no matter what.
I think that's my cue. Good night.
No, so with that, you did Spyglass Blue, you did Scattered Few. What brought you into? I know it was really more of a family affair with Men as Trees Walking, You actually came out and played my youth group, and it's when I met you, and I'll talk about something in a little bit that you said to me, but I had one of the greatest times. I just thought the music was so original, and it had, you know, those elements of reggae and still again in the Allan esque way that you do things, you know. But tell us a little bit about what brought that around and what that was about.
So I was on a self-imposed 5-year hiatus, and I was in the business, you know, just concentrating on the business sector, and just blowing up in Dallas. This internet marketing, you know, company that I had, and making money hand over fist. I had deliberately just I wasn't doing any music. I was doing another version of creative. You know, I was doing, you know, it was awesome. I loved it. We had a, you know, beautiful loft office downtown Dallas, and we were working with crazy, you know, brands. It was amazing. Anyway, and then I go to Israel, and then I go and visit. We have our kids are going to a discipleship training school on the biblical island of Cyprus. And so we go to visit our 3 kids on Cyprus after our trip to Israel. And I knew that when I did go back into music, I was going to call it Ministries Walking, and it would probably more than likely be a prophetic worship band. Not just a worship band, but a prophetic worship band, where you are, this is where it gets goofy for the majority of your audience. Because the majority of Christianity aren't charismatic. They don't have any idea what I'm talking about. But this band, this prophetic worship band, was going to function in those realms of the supernatural, healing, the prophetic, casting out demons, healing the sick, etc., 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 etc. Telling people stuff that we should know, word of knowledge, you know, gift of discernment, you know, all the stuff the New Testament talks about that Christianity just hasn't a freaking clue about. Anyway, and we're going to do that in a band in the musical stylings of Dead Can Dance, Love and Rockets. You know, if you took Dead Can Dance and Love and Rockets and meshed them together, you know, tribal, Middle Eastern tribal, reggae, you know, very melodic 3-part harmonies, lots of acoustic, hand drums, percussion, this crazy 8-piece band. And so we're in on the island of Cyprus with some a ministry, some friends of ours, and they basically unleash on us that we need to go do this and to do it now. And it was obviously that's what we were going to do. So I had to go back. I went back to the States, came back to the States, shut down the business, because that was part of it. Shut down the business and go do this thing with your family. And so we did it. It was insane. And it was called Ministries Walking, and I knew we were going to call it Ministries Walking. I knew that's what it was going to be, and I already knew what it was going to sound like, and I already knew what the name was going to be. And so I just had to do it, and so we did. And we did that for like 4 years, 3-4 years. We were on the road 6-8 months out of the year.
Incredible.
Touring. We would play Cornerstone. We would show up to Cornerstone and play like 6, 8, 10 times. It was nuts.
Wow.
And it was like, we were working with the Whosoevers. We were working with Come and Live. It was just like this crazy thing. Tens of thousands of digital downloads, and we were told to do it in the Keith Green model of not to charge, basically pay whatever they can,
right?
Music, and not to charge to play, like an honorarium or a guarantee. Right. So it was completely based on faith, and we're in this big old tour bus with 8 band members, 3 crew, and we don't know if we're going to show up and play, and we're not going to know if we're going to get paid because we're not charging.
Yeah, well, having way more people than a normal band does.
Yeah, wow. It was insane. Absolutely.
I'll tell you, when you came down there, I remember. I think we put y'all in a hotel or something that night. And then when when you were getting up to leave, I remember sitting in front of this bus and talking to you, and something came up, and you go, Jeremy, they got everything wrong in the church with how they approach people. You said people come to the church and the church expects them to behave and believe, and then they'll belong. And you told me, you said the church needs to look at it like this: they should belong, then they'll believe, then they'll behave differently. And I just thought that, as a young man that was running a youth group, my youth group was a lot kind of like what you talked about in Hollywood. It wasn't the kids that were the cool church kids. I was going into the city and reaching kids that nobody wanted. And it was not any big deal for one of those kids for me to have to go to a psych ward because they tried to kill themselves. They didn't have family. And so we were taking in what a lot of the other church considered the refuse, man. And I just wanted to tell you, thank you, because that has impacted the way I look at my faith and the way I treat people ever since.
Yeah. So the church model, the church model is basically believe, behave, to belong.
Okay.
Whereas Jesus says, believe, you already belong, and I'll teach you how to behave.
Right.
It's a total different paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been like that. I mean, why do you think they wrote the New Testament? Because there's already people perverting this thing. This thing's been perverted since day one. Remember the disciples were like, Jesus, these guys are praying and they're laying hands and praying in your name, and they're not a part of us. They don't belong. They're not a part of our little group. And Jesus said, leave it alone. This thing has been the enemy. You got to remember, when you understand, I mean understand, like in the depth of your being, understand that our enemy of our soul, this guy known as Lucifer, Satan, his job, Jesus said he was a murderer and a liar from the very beginning. His core competency, his prime directive is to do everything he possibly can to make sure you don't end up on the right side of things. Well done, good and faithful servant. His job is to make sure he is to do everything he possibly can to deceive, twist, distort, pervert, rob, steal, kill, and destroy you, your marriage, your children, your family, you as a person, as a human being. That's his job. When you know that going in, when you know that waking up, that's actually in play in an invisible realm, that changes everything that the Bible says. There's no room for denominationalism. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, not making sure it's not just an analogy or some sort of like.
Oh no, this is like a real thing, right? Then what happens is there's no room for denominationalism. There's no room for anything other than the unadulterated spiritual Word of God, the Scriptures, and the New Testament, right? And that will, or should anyway, simply based on what it actually says, just in the New Testament alone. So you got to remember, Christianity doesn't believe in the Old Testament. They've been taught that Old Testament doesn't apply to them. That's Old Covenant. That's for Jews. That's demonic. That's a doctrine of demons. How do I know that? Well, because Christianity doesn't even believe 100% of the New Testament. They believe 40 to 60% of that.
Yeah.
So Christianity is basically a philosophical, it's a theoretical morality play.
Well, the modern American Christian, even if you ask him, cleanliness is
wait, it only took me 50 minutes to do that, to get to that.
But sayings like godliness or cleanliness is next to godliness, most people in America that identify as Christians think that's in the Bible, and it's not.
Yes, I'm a citizen by grace. They think that's in the Bible.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a really shifted view of what it means to commit your life to Christ. I think when people just say this little prayer, and act like that's the one act and everything is taken care of, I feel like we just have to understand that when we come into relationship with God and we commit to him, it's more than just a little prayer. It's
Right.
exactly what you said, where it's like, I now see the reality for what it is, and that is that there is a spiritual world, there is a physical world. And that demonic world, that those things that the devil is throwing at us are to destroy you, and that is his job. And when you see it like that, it's because you are a new creation, and like the
Right.
Bible says, and the old is gone, the new has come.
And we've been equipped with everything we need. We've already been equipped with everything we'll ever need in this time-space continuum, in this earth realm, to overcome, succeed, and bear godly fruit, and hear, well done, good and faithful servant.
Yeah. So, Allan, I was thinking, why don't we, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, and the ministry and stuff that you're involved with, and just what's going on in Allan's life today.
So in 2017, I started writing books. It was a bit of a surprise. Well, people have been trying to get me to write, or they thought I should write for a while. I just didn't know what to write. And so in 2017, the Lord essentially told me to write a book about what Christianity has. Oh, this is going to get goofy now. What Christianity erroneously calls Jewish holidays. They're not Jewish holidays. God actually says these are my feasts for my people. So that's, again, that delineation is really scary, because if Christianity is convinced, because that's what they were told in seminary, and then that's what they've been propagating for 1800 years, that the feasts of Leviticus 23 are Jewish holidays, where in fact these are God's holy days for his people as a form of worship, and Christianity isn't doing them. Oh man, we're gonna get so spanked. I can't even tell you how spanked we're gonna get. Anyway, I am dead serious. This is serious crap. Anyway, so he told me to write a book about that. It's called The Feast Unlocked, and I wrote this in 2017. It came out in 2018.
Bring it to you can't see it in the screen, so center.
Oh yeah.
Quick, Feast Unlocked. There we go. Yeah, there we go. You put it down.
It's basically a breakdown of Leviticus 23 and God's feasts for his people. The biblical Sabbath. It's not Sunday. That's a Catholic construct. And since Protestants are Reformed Catholics, that's why you guys go to church on Sunday, which is why you also do Easter instead of Passover, and which was last night, and why you guys also do the Mass of Christ, which is anyway. So anyway, it breaks down Leviticus 23, and I started writing that. I wrote that book. It came out in 2018. We sell it all over the world. We're self-published. And so I've been writing books since 2017, books on theology, doctrine, apologetics, all the stuff a punk rocker should do.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I have a proper, theological bachelor's degree from Southwestern Assembly by God University, where Mr. Jimmy Swaggart went. And, what I can tell you is, even if you haven't gone to like a seminary, 95% of schools, or 95% of students in those schools are lemmings going over a cliff when it comes to just regurgitating what they heard. And about 5% of those people end up actually challenging their beliefs. And so, I would say, I will tell you all this. I've read some of Allan's work, and while some of the things that he may have said may have challenged your ideas, go read it, because he's going to explain exactly what he means. And he always has such a good handle and understanding on it. So I just want y'all to understand, this isn't flippant when it comes to Allan. This is not a shallow pond. This is a deep ocean. And so I would definitely say, guys, if you have a chance, we're going to put the links to everything in the YouTube video below it. Go buy his books. Go check out not just his records, but you know, the books he's written, the ministry he's done. Because I can tell you too, as I've gotten to know him more and more over the years, he's been a huge blessing to me, and those that information, you know. And I love that you don't just, you know, again, it's kind of the same thing with the music. You don't get contained very well.
Right. Well, you know what's funny? Here's what's funny. When I said these things behind a wall of guitars, everyone loved it. When I say the same exact thing without a music background, they hate me for it. Because, you know, because music in people's mind, right? Music is subjective. It's art. These books I'm writing, there's nothing subjective about it. This is what I believe. This is what I believe the Bible is saying, and I can explain it. The Bible translates and interprets itself. People, well, that's your opinion. No, it's actually not my opinion. And see, and when any critics that I have, they're not actually coming at me. They're coming at the Word of God, because I use so much scripture to explain what I'm talking about, that you have, you know, it's you're not arguing with me. You're literally arguing with what the Bible actually says, because they're coming at it from their denominational whatever.
Right.
And that's not what this is about. It's like, this is the Word of God from Genesis to Revelation. It interprets itself. It's well, it's just your interpretation. No, it's not my interpretation, because I can show you the interpretation or the definition of what we're talking about throughout the narrative.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Anyway, but so I've been writing books since 2017, and the marketing aspect of those books has a lot to do with social media. And so I'm live streaming like 5 hours a week. I sent you a link for that. Yeah. And then I've got like 24 teachings on YouTube that people can go and check out. You know, places, whether it's on TV or at a church or at a conference or something. So I've been doing that, and apparently it was a natural transition for me, simply because if you ever went to one of our concerts, I didn't shy away from speaking or letting people know what my faith profile looked like.
Right.
Whether it was Scattered Few or Spyglass Blue. And see, and you know what? A lot of people have come at me in the last dozen years about what happened to Allan. He used to be such a cool punk rocker. What happened to that guy? Well, you weren't paying attention, were you? Because if you look at just Sin Disease alone, they weren't paying attention to what the lyrical content is. You know, I mean, I used Hebrew words and names and phrases. I called Jesus Yeshua, which was very clearly expressing my position on when it came to let's use the term Messianic Judaism, or at least the fact that we are that Christianity is grafted into the olive tree of Israel. Gee, that's Paul. In Romans 10 and 11, you know what I'm saying? I was very vocal in 1989 in my band called Scattered Few regarding my position on the Hebrew roots of our faith, Israel, right? I think I denounced fascism and prejudice, prejudice and all that stuff, and multiple times in the lyrical content. They're very confused how I ended up coming out of how did Allan come out such a right-wing MAGA head? It's like, were you not listening to what I was saying for the last 30 plus years? You know, if you go back and look at my body of work, or even my interviews, I've given a consistent message for 30 plus years. I didn't change or veer. They did.
That's what I'm saying. The truth is, everyone else has shifted quite intensely. So it's like,
well, right? Because so it's like, so how old were you when I put out Sin Disease? And they'll say, oh, I was 16, I was 18, I was 20. You had no idea what you believed. Here you are now in your 30s and your 40s, and you've decided this is what you believe, and you're way over there. I'm still in the same exact place. Well, that sounds bad, but I'm in the same place I was when it comes to my position on theology, politics, religion, doctrine. I didn't change. I haven't changed. If anything, I'm more resolute in what
I appreciate that more than you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that because most people don't. So thank you. Yeah.
Well, brother,
I ain't most people, I guess.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Well, Allan, before we go, I definitely want to give you a chance to plug anything else that you got going on or that you want people to go to. Again, we'll add the links in below.
Awesome.
Go ahead and let us know.
So this is like, I was going to say, the hot wings when you turn the I'm in the middle of 2 books right now. One of them I'm really excited about. It's the one that's going to come out after the second one. I'm live streaming like 5 hours a week, and it's a series on Romans that we did a few months ago that we're putting in book form, which is absolutely incriminating to modern Christianity in every way, shape, or form, because they're not doing anything Paul told them to do in the book of Romans. I mean, he's our poster boy. Paul has taught more than Jesus on any Sunday and any church. And they still can't do that. So it's just what the heck, So anyway, I'm excited about that. We got a couple books. We're live streaming 5 hours a week, and I'm making a new record. We're calling it Auditory. It's an Allan Aguirre record. If you like anything I've done musically, hopefully you'll like this one too. I don't know when it'll come out because I'm still in the middle of working on it. And that's pretty much what I'm up to. Writing books, making a new album, and talking at you 5 hours a week online.
Well, man, like I said, y'all, if you have not checked out his music before, but especially if you haven't checked out what he's been doing with his writing, I would urge you check it out. Go and hear him. Go listen to his teachings on YouTube. I think you'll be intrigued because I have found it extremely in depth and found Allan to be a very knowledgeable. Did you want to say anything, Jesse, before we go?
Yeah, I'm just getting started. I got a couple hours prepared for you guys.
I've got nothing else to do, man.
I don't have a whole lot. I'm genuinely just happy to be here and experiencing this moment. And I guess I'm just having a resurgence right now in my life of after kind of isolating for years, kind of working by myself, to see people that are encouraging and inspiring and real. And I don't know that we can't physically touch each other right now, but to me, it's just a privilege to be able to be. Oh, for real. I mean, I know I get sentimental and corny and everything.
No, dude, it's been a long time since we've seen each other.
And I am a little bit bitter. You haven't called me in 20 years. No. But no, this is great. I'm really happy to be here, and I hope people.
You know what? We see each other online.
On the interwebs.
Yep, I watched you in your boots and I don't know, shorts in the snow.
So yeah, if people don't know what you're talking about, I have poured my heart and soul into painful art for 20, 30 years. And what most people like right now about my work is sitting in the effing snow in the middle of the road in the wintertime in New York, looking like an idiot. That's my art.
Where are you living right now?
It's great. It's great to be here. It's great to be here.
Where do you live right now?
I say Rochester, New York, but it's.
Oh, you're in Rochester.
Yeah. The winters are awful.
Oh, dude, Buffalo. Remember, look what happened to Buffalo 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just like this road. Walking out of my studio, you go there, it just literally goes straight to Buffalo, like in an hour. Like so.
But I'm in Park City, Utah. I'm in like ski resort town.
You're in Utah now?
I've been in Utah for 11, almost 12 years.
Oh, I knew that.
And it's a ski resort, so I'm like in the mountains of Utah.
Oh, okay.
And yeah.
I just want spring and sunshine back so bad. That's all.
Well,
That's what I
we
like.
had a very mild winter, so I mean, we're supposed to get snow this weekend. Today it was 73 today. Woo! Awesome.
I just want baseball weather back, baby.
Turkey season's in less than 2 weeks.
I love you guys for real.
Yeah,
It's
man. It was awesome. Thank y'all so much for coming on. And guys, we'll have more to come, more podcasts to come. And
It's a vidcast, dude. It's a vidcast.
Vidcast.
People like me, though, they're all podcast, baby.
They're all podcasts, Alan. All right. We'll see y'all soon.
To be or not is not the question. To live and die is not a muse. To really think about your destination, it just makes it difficult to choose. I hear you now. I see it here.